Hey everybody, I'm on a little early. Actually, just waiting for people to come on. So this is not officially it. I may have to edit this in the post um, production. Um, the But we are going to have an interesting conversation today. I'm very excited about um, the guests that are promising to come on. I'm texting them right now, letting them know that I'm live. All right. So this all got started. The topic of this podcast got started because I have a friend of mine that he does a podcast. He's a pastor, and I love what he talks about you basically your intentions, right? Your intention and how that can steer your life and how it can, you know, you can have what you imagine, okay? And he likes to say that God wants us to have to plan so he can be in your plans, right? So God, there's so much I want to talk about. I just want to wait for everybody else to get on or get our guests to come on. So what I do is help people put together their plans, their financial plans. And you're going to hear me say what I'm saying now over because I'm going to probably say it again when our guests come on. But this is, there's so much I want to talk about here. The we're coming up on the end of the school year and summertime, and people this is when they're gonna go on vacation and they're gonna um, go camping or the go visit family and in wherever, and it's once this is over, there's going to be people graduation. They're getting may have kids getting ready to go to college, all this stuff, and it wouldn't happen if you didn't plan for it. Okay. But people plan much more. People plan more for dinner than they do their finances, and that's something. And so we're gonna talk about that. And we got some very interesting people coming on, and I can't wait. Got like 6 more minutes to go. When you're in the military and you're an airborne, and then that's 6 minutes, right? It's that we're saying we're gonna get ready to go. Stand up, hook up, stand in the door, go, right? And that's so we're at that point. We're at like 6 minutes to actually start. I don't know how much of this I'll keep, or if I'll cut it out in the edit afterwards. I wasn't expecting it to actually start. I thought it was going to be like in a waiting room, wait to puts to go, but it went right away. So let's see. I feel like a Captain Kangaroo or Mr. Rogers right now, talking to the camera. Ain't that funny? They were the pre um they started it all first. How about that, right? They got pretty much how we prep for having these public conversations, right? Put everybody at ease, make them feel comfortable, and so they can actually say what they want to say. That's really interesting how that works, right? When you have anxiety, it triggers something in your brain, the amygdala, and that regulates the fight or flight. And it had a great purpose back when it was, when we were primitive, right? And we had dangerous, like the woolly rhinoceros and mastodon and the saber-toothed tiger we had to look out for, right? And it helped keep us safe. But those days are gone, okay? But that mechanism still works the way it does, which actually causes us to slow down and not take action. Isn't that something? And it'll do things like you ever feel butterflies in your stomach. And I learned this. Roy Jones Sr. taught me this in boxing. So that's some horses getting ready to run. He's your adrenaline is just a hormone. There's really no mass to it. It just sends a signal to your other organs. Your pancreas causes it to produce more glucose to get into your bloodstream. Your respiration increases to get more oxygen in your bloodstream. So the fuel and the oxygen are going to your muscles, so you can be stronger and faster. Causes a delay in your thinking process, so you end up reacting to what's most familiar to you. The neuropathies take over. And what's interesting is the how this got educated to me was the butterflies, right? And what that is when you don't take action, the excess glucose dumps off in your stomach and causes butterflies, right? So the way to solve that, boxing, just jumping rope or shadow boxing before you get up there in the ring to fight. But once I understood, I knew my hard work in the gym, preparing, right, was going to take effect. And I was going to do those things I had been training and practicing. I was going to do it harder and faster. And that gave me confidence. Isn't that something? Right. So that's in line with what we're going to talk about today, but with finances. And I'm really excited to have the guests that I've invited that have told me they're coming on to come on. So I'm just keep waiting for them to let them in when I see them pop up in here. And so far they haven't got my text yet. Let's see. Yeah, I got some very interesting people coming. Coming on here. So we got end of the school year coming up, and we have and there's already fireworks stands up in like nowhere else I've ever seen. Is it's an industry is Texas, man. There'll be places opening up on the Rio Grande Valley, here in Houston, but I saw so much in the Rio Grande Valley. It was crazy. They got a Connex box with their fireworks in it alongside the road, man, and just people pulling in and buying their fireworks. It's fun. It's funny. Yeah, it's got right where I do my laundry. There's a they put a box there. It's there all the time. So right around New Year's and of course 4th of July, they open up to sell their fireworks. Right? It's like clockwork. Right? It's amazing. And then I think of the dogs. Our dog goes nuts. All right. Well, I got a guest on. Hang on. Oh, what happened? What happened to my guest? Come on. Come on back. Here we go. How are you, man?
Doing all right, Ruben. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm excited right now. I'm especially to have you on. I been thinking about you a whole lot of recent, right? But I got some people that are going to be real interesting that are coming on. One guy's he's a drone pilot out of California. Done a lot with using drones for like video for movies and TV. Got another guy, pastor, but he's also into broadcasting coming on. And there's and then you and they all work together. Here we go. Here's Andrew. How you doing, Andrew?
Well, now that I found the right link, I'm doing well.
All right, awesome. So I do a podcast every Friday at noon Central Time, and I'm in financial services, and I started doing it because I was on another podcast for the Christian Entrepreneur Club. I'm part of that, and they have people that have different businesses, landscaping, handyman businesses. There's a lot of people that are authors writing books. There's some nonprofits, all that. And then they got to me and they asked me, what I do. And I'm like, I'm in financial services. And they go, what is that? And I go, it's I help people with their finances and how to make more money, save more money, pay less in taxes, get proper protection. And they couldn't grasp it. They really wanted me to just narrow it down to a specific product. And what I do, I learned, not one size fits all, right? You got to pretty much figure out where you are to get to where you're going, where you want to go. And it makes me think back when I was in the SEAL teams, right? They drop you off in the middle of the night in a helicopter, and you get under the point. The OIC get under a tarp and break out their red lens flashlight and get the map and compass out and try to figure out where you're at. Then once we figure that out, then we can figure out how to get to where we're going. And I used to hate mission planning when I just wanted to go kick butt, right? But then I was in the Panama invasion, Operation Just Cause, and things didn't go, as planned. We had 4 dead, 8 wounded, and it was a mess. It was scary. And I'm like, after it was over, like 3:00 in the morning, the next night, I'm like, how did that happen? We're Navy SEALs. That wasn't supposed to happen to us, right? And we figured out that we didn't adhere to what we were taught by the Vietnam vets. Okay, you don't You don't engage the enemy unless you have the element of surprise, cover and concealment, and superior firepower. And we broke all of those rules. The enemy knew we were coming. We were on a lighted runway. There was nothing to hide behind, right? and and we had superior firepower, but there was one guy in the second story window of this
You're
hangar.
muted.
I'm muted.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me,
Oh, you
Mosin?
can?
I can hear you.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Then
All
it's
right.
just me.
There was this one guy in the second story window of this hangar that did all the damage. Killed 4 guys and wounded 8 of us. And but it was, if we'd adhered to those initial disciplines, we would have been fine. Okay. And what I see, and I was just telling my girlfriend that people plan more for dinner than they do for their finances. Right? It's crazy. And the when you're looking at doing anything significant, I look back at my life and I think of some things that I did that went the wrong way. I didn't really plan that much. I just had I got excited about it and took action and didn't have it all the way thought through, which turned out to be very detrimental to me. Okay. And when I sit down with people and try to get them, getting started, we got to go through a budget. We got to figure out, what's coming in and what's going out and how they're spending that, where that money's going. And to figure out, I'm going to see what there is that I can use for them to get them in a better place. And maybe they're wasting money. Okay. But keeping this all in order. Now, Moison has got an interesting, he's a property manager for single family homes, not like apartment complexes, but actually houses. And what's fascinating to me, because I've had rental properties before, is what do you do, Moison, to make sure that you got somebody in there who's gonna pay the rent on time every month?
Oh, we've got a strict screening criteria, and it's posted on our application link. So everybody that pays the application fee, they see the criteria before they even pay for it. But we're looking at everything. We're going to run them through the eviction database. We have minimum credit requirements. We check their criminal history. We verify their work history, and we're looking at their pay stubs and actually their statements. We want to see those deposits getting in. And then, even I take it a step further because I feel so strongly about the tenants that we place. I offer eviction protection. That means that if I place a tenant and I have to evict them, I'm going to cover that cost. So it's all about setting expectations, putting in the right person in there, not just rushing to fill the property with the first person that applies. You just, we gotta make sure the people we put in are going to take care of our clients' assets. Did he fall out?
Yes. So keep talking.
That's all I got. What do you do, Andrew?
That's a great question. I am currently writing a book as
Okay.
a Army veteran who has faced challenges and hardships my entire life. I joined the Army at 34 and a half, right before the cutoff age,
Wow.
to take a break and reassess life, and just kept falling, metaphorically, literally, and I had this title swimming in my head for decades.
That I had somebody that messaged me that their sound wasn't working, and kick me out
Nice.
when I went. But what I wanted to get to was that, Moses is not playing around when he's looking for somebody to put into one of the properties. Now, are you the owner of these properties, or are you the one just doing the management?
No, I manage them for landlords, investors. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the middleman
Okay.
between the tenant and the landlord. Yeah.
All right. So there's do you know, did they inform you on like what the balance of the mortgages on the property, or if it's
No,
free and clear?
that's not my concern. That's public record. I can access that information, but no, that's not my concern. My concern is to collect and distribute the rents.
Okay. So talking about this being aware, or paying attention to the details, in San Diego, California, there was a retired Navy NFO pilot, which means he was a non-flight officer. He was the navigator, right? And he got his real estate broker's license, and he started in the commercial sector. And he's right downtown San Diego, California. And every Friday, he would have a seminar, and he'd start off on the formula for calculating the cap rate, right? And then he would, basically, showing how occupancy, affected that, and what he did with his property management company to increase the occupancy and get the rents up, and then other things that they would do. They would go in and they would do an audit and check how their electrical system was working and how efficient it was, and they would put in and they would try to get their management company in to replace whoever they were using for management. All right, and they could reduce the fees, and they had already a bank of possible tenants to get into those properties, and then he would start showing properties that he was managing and how he increased the value by the things that they did with them. One of the things he would talk about was leasing space on the building for the cellular repeaters, right? And there'd be some cash flow coming in that would that would lower the cap rate and actually increase the value of the properties, things like that. Now, I've come to learn about some strategies. I started off in financial services as a debt management consultant. And, the company was using the debt management as a lead generator for mortgages. They would do a strategic refinance, a second or a new first, and consolidate strategic debt to create a larger margin of savings, put that into a debt roll-up strategy and all of that. And long story short, I wrote more business my first month with that company than anybody else had done for them in a year and a half, and they made me the manager. And then every time I showed somebody how to get out of debt, they started looking at buying a house. So that's why I got my real estate license, started doing mortgages and real estate back then. And I would make clients, I could look at their credit report and see what they needed to do to get their scores up. I could look at their assets and see what they needed to do to get their assets up enough to qualify, because the banks wanted reserves. The mortgage companies wanted reserves and all that. And then I got introduced to financial services, and I'm like, I had all these people I'd helped get into a property that I knew were never going to pay off that mortgage. They were going to work the rest of their life. They're never going to be able to retire. And now I had a resource that I could help them, and that's how I ended up getting in the business. And I had been in the industry for over 20 years before I found out about the family banking strategies, or they call infinite banking strategies, which is where the you capture the debt service every month on the payment. So actually, it's working for you. It's like you get paid twice, right? Your dollars getting twice the work out of it, right? And that was basically passing that debt service amount through a whole life policy, and then borrowing that money out, the debt service amount out, and to pay your mortgage on time. And I had been teaching about the debt roll-up strategy, like using like an extra $100 a month, and it just pay your bills on time. When you pay that, that extra $100 will bite down the interest in that smallest debt. Everything you pay above me on the minimum goes straight to principal, lowering your effective interest rate, paying everything off faster. And then once that was paid off, you take that debt service amount and you apply it to the next smallest debt, and you just roll up your debt, and it can pay it off significantly faster without changing your lifestyle, right? I mean, you make extra money, you save that money, okay? And then I found out about the pill method. And just because I have these numbers memorized, if somebody had a $338,400 mortgage at 5% interest, their monthly payment is going to be $1,886 a month. But of that $1,886 a month, only $500 a month goes toward principal. And there's a calculation, there's software that does it. There's a guy that talks about it all the time on LinkedIn, and that's where I learned about it from. And so of that $1,886 a month, only $500 a month goes toward principal. But if you took an extra principal payment and you made it 11 days after the due date, so if you're due on the 1st, you paid on the 12th, you'll eliminate a whole month's worth of interest. You would pay that mortgage off in 15 years. And then when you combine the debt roll up with the pill method, now you've paid off that mortgage in 12 years. And I could never figure out how to do it in less than 10 until I found out about these family banking strategies where you put that money in, you run that debt service amount through the whole life policy. You get credit for that whole $1,886 a month in the policy. So it's going to grow faster. Actually, you would have enough in the whole life policy by, 9.2 years, you'd have enough in the policy to completely pay off the remaining balance of the mortgage. So now you borrow that money out of the policy, pay off the mortgage, and now you're paying yourself back. And only in whole life, and that's, I was always taught it was a dog. The interest rate's too low. They average between 4% and 6%. But then there came these mutual companies, which basically every policy owner is treated like a shareholder, and they pay a dividend. So with the dividends and the guaranteed, it's running about 5.125%, been that way for a bit. With the dividends, they're just under 12%. Okay. So now you're paying yourself back. And I was educating myself, and I saw this a Naval Reserve officer that used his VA loan, but he used this strategy to pay that loan off faster. And then he found he financed, took a loan from his house and bought into a fitness franchise and opened up another policy, and paying off the franchise fee was financed, and he opened up another whole life policy to do that. And he got like four of these fitness businesses in his house. And I'm like, oh, that's how it can work for small businesses, right? And then now I've got, looking at clients and how I can help them. I got somebody now that they were in 2022, they were making like 58 grand a year. They have these acoustic sensors. They were basically, their clients were chemical companies, and they would find the cracks in fuel cells with these acoustic sensors. And then his income just took a jump in because SpaceX had a rocket blow up on the launch pad because they had a cracked fuel cell. And his income popped to 1.3 million in 2023, and then 1.4 million in 2024. And the end of 2024, the company, the German company that he bought these sensors from, approached him because of the Trump tariffs. And so they made him their US partner. So now instead of sending the sensor complete, they send it in two parts, the mechanism and a cap. As soon as he snaps it together, it's a US manufactured product, and they get around the tariffs. And then he became their primary agent in the United States. He was their biggest customer anyways. Oh no, we lost Mosen. And then he his income jumped to 2.5 million in 2024 and this year, right? And his tax bill is crazy, right? So I'm showing him how using the tax deferred vehicles, 401k, 77,000 a year, and then with the profit sharing, because he's the business owner, he can share profits with himself and defer those taxes. It's about $76,000 a year. And then with the cash balance strategies, he can put away up to $460,000 a year tax deferred. It'll save him like $170,000 a year in taxes. But at age 73, when he has to take his mandatory distributions, he's going to have going to be about 350 to 415,000 a year. He'll have a tax bill of about 110 to 150,000. I can take some of that tax savings now, about 60,000 a year, and he'd have enough tax advantage, would be tax-free money to offset those mandatory distributions now. So he's covering all his bases. Okay. And that's part of, paying attention to every aspect of what you're doing. And so that's, I know being a property manager, there's all kinds of things you got to keep in mind. There's, the maintenance, do you do anything with the taxes on the properties you manage, or do you have any input on that?
No, I have one client that asked me to process those payments, but other than that one client, I'd tell them they got to handle their own taxes. Yeah.
Okay. I know that, that's a business. That's a great business to be in, is real estate investing. But you got to pay attention. There's the depreciation that you take advantage of. I had 2 rental properties. I had from like 1987 until 2006, and they didn't appreciate a dime, not a penny, right? And
Where were they?
one was in Virginia Beach, and the other one was in Pensacola, Florida. And I got them. They were non-qualified assumptions, VA loans. I just picked up the payments. It was back when the General Dynamics went out of business, right? And that affected all the anybody, defense spending and businesses that were heavy with defense contracting and all that. In those areas, there's a lot of people in those industries. And so I could, so I got them I just took over the payments, paid the closing costs at escrow, and they were mine. They were title went to me. But I got a great tax deduction every year. And then when I sold the property, I'm like, oh, I had to pay that back. No, I didn't know that. So I'm like, ouch, right? Yeah. My boxing coach used to tell us, when you learn things the hard way, those are lessons that stay with you the rest of your life. You never forget them. But the problem is when you learn them the hard way, it's the hard way. You can't do anything with that information except teach it to somebody else. It's better to learn from somebody else's mistakes, right? And
Oh, yeah.
so with now Andrew is in the drone business, and I was actually hoping to get Pastor, Dr. Francisco Rios on, because he's in the broadcast industry, right? And he does TV and film and all that. And but when I was in the drone business I worked with MTSI, Modern Technology Solutions Incorporated. They do all the image processing and data management for the military drones. And I was their domestic lead. I was living in Dallas. And my job was to go all over the country looking for anybody doing anything with drones. And I learned so much about, real estate, aerial photography for real estate, how they did it, so that they could make it. They walk through the house backwards with the drone and out the front door, and then they take it flat. So then they play it back in reverse. So it looks like it's flying around and then going through the house, right? But it's all backwards. I learned how that worked. The guy that actually he was one of the lead instructors for the Unmanned Vehicle University, but he was also the one that came up with the coaxial rotors for the heavy lifters to carry like 2 red cameras for 3D movies and film. He did the Expendables 2 and the Lord of the Rings movies. He was the drone pilot for all of them. And so I learned a lot about that. And his background was actually as a software engineer. That's how he got into that field. And that's like my son, that's what he does. He's a computer. He graduated cum laude with a degree in computer science from University of West Florida. And, he's working for Navy Federal Credit Union, and he's working on their AI so they can actually like detect the mood of the customers coming into the bank, right? But I was trying to steer him in that direction. Then another buddy of mine is like one of the top civil engineers in the country. He was the guy that figured out how to use a handheld GPS and a robotic surveyor scope. He could do more by himself than a 4-man team could do. But he always resisted the drones because at that time, their accuracy wasn't enough. Now it's down to like 3 millimeters, right? It's, they could do it, and it's so much faster and so much more. Can you tell us a little bit about, how somebody with that Part 107 license can make more money?
There's so many different directions for them. You think about it, like you're saying, the film industry, instead of using helicopters, you have a drone. It costs a lot less, and you're on the ground, and the director is right there telling you what to do, how to do it. Does it look good? Does it not look good? News. So there's a lot in the film industry. But if you also think about it, the power lines, the wind turbines, like we were talking about the other day, the shipyards, anything where you're going to need to access buildings. You might not have the scaffolding up yet, so you can do inspections on all these different areas. And there's also it was there. Oh, window, solar panel washing. He's an Air Force veteran, and he's also works with JetBlue, and in the Coachella Valley, he is building a drone business with these big drones that you attach a hose to it, and it's got a filter in his van with special solution and special water, because if you just use your own hose, it's not gonna keep your solar panels clean. So that's another business. And then of course window washing. I mean, and they're attaching the water tanks to the drones so you can bring them up in higher skyscrapers. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Everything you can think of, instead of climbing up, you can inspect roofs and buildings, like I was saying earlier, and you don't have to climb and fall and break something or die. Worst case scenario, the drone breaks. And most of them, you're looking at maybe $5,000. You get insurance for that and you're good to go. And, part of the 107 is actually a big part of the 107 test is safety. Do you understand safety?
Well, in the when I was working with MTSI,
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend of mine who worked for my buddy, who was the surveyor I told you about, and he moved back to Breckenridge, Texas, and he was in the he worked for a company that did the fracking, and
Oh,
they
right.
didn't use the helicopters because it was so much more expensive. Okay,
Mhm.
it was like $1,000 an hour, and they got it done faster with the helicopter, but they'd fly really low, like right around 1,000 feet, which is high enough where that something goes wrong and that helicopter goes down, it's going to hurt you.
Yep.
But it was too low to get like auto rotate to actually control the landing, so it was dangerous, right? And so they were driving, so it took them longer. Okay, they were driving and they'd be like, 10 to 50 square miles of area they have to cover, right? Then they got to make sure all these sensors are every 25 yards, and they emit a signal that gives the battery life and the lat and long of the box. They get them all, and they're all working, and then they fire the shot. They police them all up, replace them, and they try to do 3 shots to get the accuracy to find out where the pockets of oil and gas are, right? And with a drone, it's a lot less expensive. You could probably for $1,000 get the drone pilot for the whole day, right? And then and much safer. Okay, so and then like inspecting the high tension power lines, right? That's another dangerous job, right? They got a guy on a platform hanging out of the helicopter, flying along the power lines, right? And checking out the insulators and the transformers, right? And they got just cuckoo. That just
It's scary.
I'm a free fall jump master. I'm used to hanging out the back of a C-130, spotting the jump. And to thinking of what this guy's doing, that kind of scares me, right? But it would save him money, significant amount of money. And now what I was running into was I called Maricopa County Sheriff's Department.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to talk to their head of air operations, who was their helicopter pilot. So when I'm explaining to him what the drones can do, the first thing he said was, these drones are going to run us out of business. Right. And I'm like, oh no, right. And I didn't, that wasn't even a concept in my mind. Right. But that's what they were worried about. They were worried about the drones were going to take over their jobs, where in fact, because they got a pilot's license, if they would have just got a drone, they could have got a drone and learned to fly it, right? And it would have done exactly the opposite. It would have been, they would have made more money, right?
Exactly. And it costs less.
Crazy. Yeah.
It costs less because they're not using the helicopters. So, and
they
the
passed
police.
some law federal agents or federal employees couldn't use drones for surveillance. So the way around it was there was the rent-a-cops. You know how like schools have their own police, right? So
Exactly.
the McAllen ISD police, they contracted them to fly the drone for the Border Patrol and U.S. Customs. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
And also
they-
search and rescue. That's a whole nother angle where,
Oh,
you can fly the drone really quickly, and with thermography, you can find the person lying there because of the heat signature.
you know Jim Robinson?
That name sounds really familiar.
He's out of Wimberley, Texas. He was the guy that sued the FAA because that's what he did. He had a fixed wing drone. It was like a and he just throw it up and it would look for that, and that's how he was doing the search and rescue. That's what he does, right? And he was one of the top trainers for he was the other trainer for the Unmanned Vehicle University, right? But that's what he used to do. And there's in DeSantis, California, which is East San Diego, there was a young girl. He found her body. They walked past that place for days, and then when he flew the drone by, because what happened was when your body starts to decompose, those fluids release out of the body, and the grass, it kills the grass around the dead body.
Yes.
And his drone picked up the change in color, and that's how they found her.
Yeah. That's just so amazing what we can do with that.
Well, so here in Houston, there's a welding school,
right?
That is one of 3 in the country that teach underwater welding. And they make them get their Part 107 license so they can operate the underwater drones, but that same license, they can fly a drone, right? So now let's say a welder gets a job, maintain a pipeline or water tower, they can use their drone, fly the pipeline, find where the damage is, break out their cutting torch and welder and get busy. They get paid to fly the drone and they get paid to do the work. Right?
Nice job.
Yeah. So there's and in real estate photography, that's one of the reasons, like Moison, he's you think of a property manager, that's somebody who's going to have, an apartment complex or an office building, right? But he's doing single family homes, right? And I was, wanted to see if he had ever used any, and I know he sells real estate too, right? He's got the license to do the same license to do both things, right? And that's part of what I'm talking about. When I'm sitting down with somebody, if they don't have enough money to cover their daily expenses, all they're going to get from me is advice, right? And it's kind of funny. Before I was a Navy SEAL, my job was teaching boxing and physical fitness to Navy pilots and air crewmen. And what I would do is I would watch the guy, and I had by this time I'd had 54 amateur fights. So I knew what I was doing. And I'd watch the guys, they would have just 2 days of actual sparring in 2 rounds. So they get 4 rounds of actual sparring, right? And I would just watch the guy getting his face beat in, and I'd go to his corner and tell him what to do. And most of the time they would do what I told them, and they'd turn it around. And I'm thinking, I'm the next best thing since Angelo Dundee. And I was telling my Master Chief, this. He's Navy SEAL, Vietnam vet. He was a wrestler. He pinned the world champion on the wrestling mat before he went to Buds. He was quite an accomplished wrestler. And he goes, the guy that's getting his face beat in has a lot of incentive to do what you're telling him.
Yeah.
And when I'm seeing, in financial services, if somebody doesn't have some pain, all right, here's what happened with me. I just got my broker's license. I go to my Kiwanis Club meeting, and the guy at the door wearing a suit and tie. I hand him my business card. I just got my broker's license. I'm all proud of it. Right? He goes, "Oh, we do mortgages too." I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to talk to him. He's my competition, right?" Well, he was in financial services, and they were partnering with mortgage brokers to help their clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so these family banking strategies, the running the payment producer, you're actually earning money on the debt service, okay? And so, but he didn't explain that, right? He just said what he said and he didn't say it the right way. Their process, the very bottom line, the baseline with proper protection. I'm like, that's a good idea, right? And then there was debt management. I already had that covered, right? And then it was emergency fund. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea too, right? You want to have at least 3 months in reserve, right? And then investments. I'm like, oh, all right. But I didn't catch it then, right? But that he taught about the rule of 72, the law of compound interest. Okay. Mm-hmm. So whatever interest rate you earn on your money, mm-hmm. divided into the number 72 determines how fast your money doubles. Now, at this time, I had all my debt paid off except my mortgages. And I had $50,000 sitting in my bank in a CD getting 4%. I thought that was pretty good at the time, right? And this was right after the .com crash.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I'm like, and then and like not too long before that was the savings and loan crisis, right? So the market was really volatile during that time, right? And I'm thinking my 4% is safe, right? But when I had 72, I'm like, oh, it's going to take, my money's not going to double for 16 years. That's right. And what I ended up doing was I ended up spending all my money trying to do an interactive boxing television show.
Wow.
And I had two producers that fleeced me because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know. They just kept asking for money. I'm like, oh yeah, come on. I'm making enough money. I was making like $10,000 a month back then, right? And then I figured out the first producer had, after $50,000 paying him, he was slow walking the post production. He was eating my money.
Wow.
He was paying his rent, right? And then the second producer only cost me $17,000. And the fight he did the production on was one of my old sparring partners. He was defending his NABF cruiserweight title, and he put it against Felix Cora. Cora beat him, but this guy put it in the can and sold it 3 times in Brazil and 3 times in South Korea, and I didn't get a dime.
Wow.
Right, and I'm like, okay, so with all of that experience, I'm like, okay, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have spent any of my money, right, to do this, right? I'd have just found the right people, and that's kind of happening now, like with this Dr. Francisco Rios. He is Roy Jones Jr. is one of my old sparring partner, really good friends, was best man at my my first wedding. and he's got this cause to rescue trafficked women and children, and they're using the proceeds from professional boxing events to pay for these ex-paramilitary guys to go after these trafficked children, right? Mm-hmm. And so I introduce him to somebody who introduces me to Dr. Rios, and he's going to be their distribution for the Hispanics market.
Okay.
Okay, so that's, so that, it seems kind of odd having, you being in the drone business, Moison being in the, property management business, and then, Dr. Rios would have been on the phone. He's in, the production business, but they all kind of tie together.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
Okay.
and that's part of what I'm doing. I'm rebuilding my TV networks. And eventually, my goal is to use the drone as the filmmaking part.
Okay, so like,
you can,
there's what I see, like when I am on these calls with these entrepreneurs that are part of the Christian entrepreneur club. Okay, what a lot of them, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get a client from maybe another member of the club, or do cross marketing. So somebody, refers to their database somebody from a different industry, and then they refer them. So but there's all kinds of things that they could do. There's this one handyman that, and I know how that goes. That's cyclical, right? During the spring, summer, and fall, things are okay, but in the wintertime, things get kind of slow, right? And what a lot of them are doing is they shift their business to putting up Christmas decorations, right? I mean,
right.
whatever they can do, right, to make more money, right? And there's people, in the Sun technician in San Diego, and if he gets certified to do inspections on his off time, he can almost double his income. Right.
Yeah.
So now this is where I come in, right? Like, that's why I like to talk to people at the trade school, because once they get their certificate, I don't care if it's barber college and cosmetology school, or welding and HVAC, whatever. Once they get their certificate, they're going to make more money than they're used to spending. Okay. But once somebody's already used to spending something, it's really hard to get them not to spend that money and start saving that money.
All right.
Okay. Right. So it's helping them get that done beforehand. Right. And when they're young, it's really easy for me to show somebody who's 22 years old putting away $600 a month, that by the time they're 57, they're a millionaire and they can get a tax-free stream of income that they can live on in retirement. That's easy, right? But when you're older, you don't have the time. So then it's that your greatest asset is your experience and your knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can use, and I had this ex-Army Ranger, Vietnam vet, colonel with a PhD. He had 6 businesses that supported the produce industry. And there's more produce warehouses in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas than there is in the whole state of California. And I was his rep. So I got to see it firsthand how taking that same knowledge base to create those multiple income streams. Right. And then, because that's how you don't want to have somebody doing, a drone pilot that cuts hair on the side, that's kind of, it doesn't work. It doesn't go together, right? But if you can find that secondary business that supports your business, like in real estate, right? Somebody's, flying drones and doing real estate photography. Now their listings look better.
Yes.
There's more interesting for the prospective buyer to see your property and see the whole yard and inside the house and everything. You clean your house and make it look great, and then you have the guy come in and walk through the house backwards with the drone.
Actually, nowadays you don't even have to walk backwards. They have drones that are designed to be indoors, and they even have what's called a follow me feature. So you attach
No
your little
kidding.
microphone and you just set it up and you say, follow me, and you're talking to the camera drone as you're walking the different parts of the house. And it's really impressive.
Well, I'm glad you came on.
Thank
What are
you.
you what are you doing? Like you're moving, right?
I'm traveling all over Southern California, and my home base will probably be right in the West LA area, because that's where the West LA VA is, and that's where I can get the best care that I need. And so that's actually where I'm heading most likely tomorrow morning early. I'm going to go to actually the Hollywood American Legion and help them up with an event they're doing. That's my
Yeah,
goal.
I live right in between Tunnels to Towers, which is a transitional housing facility here in
Okay.
Houston, Texas, and between Camp Hope, which is the guys that are got PTSD. A lot of them are ate up with substance abuse issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they get them out. Now it's very different. The Tunnels to Towers guys, they're really just happy to have a place to live and food to eat, and
Yeah.
what they're working on increasing their disability rating. And
Mm-hmm.
lady there that helps them find jobs, she's like beside herself, just really frustrated because they're not motivated to go find, try to get a job, right? Where the ones that are the Camp Hope guys,
Mm-hmm.
they're way motivated to find something, to establish themselves. It's really kind of interesting, the contrast, just because of what their background is, right?
I would love to find out what's going on with both. I'm working with another nonprofit, Community Alliance Youth Success, K's Purpose, CAYS, purpose.org. And it's really interesting what we're doing for the youth. Is the first year is helping them to discover their passion and purpose. Then the second year, it's developing it. And the third year, it's living it. And I'm wanting to, once we get that, we're almost there. We've got everything set up. I want to do this same thing for the veterans, because if we help the veterans find their passion and purpose, they don't have a reason to commit suicide. If they trip or do something, it's like, I'm a waste. My family and friends are just I'm a burden for them, and I'm out of here. But if they have the passion and purpose and drive, that's going to keep them from saying goodbye to the world.
Now, what you
So,
just said, the whole Christian Entrepreneur Club, right?
yes.
There's like, it really bent my mind, and just to let you know, I've read the whole Bible like 16 times cover to cover.
Wow.
I went through a period that I read the same chapters of Genesis, Psalms, and Proverbs every day for a month before I go to the next chapter. It took me 3.5 years to get through all of that, and then I studied the temple process. I retranslated the 613 laws of Moses back to Paleo Hebrew, so you actually, right, all of that, right, and it just was been in my mind. There were so many Christians that thought money was bad and
Yeah.
business is bad, and then when you
Yeah.
read the Bible, you catch that from the disciples, right? But in the Old Testament, God's
Yeah.
promising the wealth and prosperity, right? And what
Right.
I figured out after, is what it is, going through all the letters of Paul and everything. It's, you got to have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You got to
Mm-hmm.
just make more money so you can, stockpile it and like playing Monopoly, right? What he wants you to do is earn that money for that cause to better mankind.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Help other people, right? And so
Yeah.
that's when you're blessed. That's when you're gonna get, God's gonna come in. You make your plans, and God's gonna come in and enhance your plans and get you there faster. But he needs you to. You need to have that focus, and you need to have that. And so what I do is help people get it together so they can do that. So the very first
Right.
thing I have to do is see get that whole financial analysis, where the money's coming in, where it's going out, what I can do to help you pay that debt off faster, what I can do to help you increase your savings, get a better rate of return, protect you from taxes and inflation and market volatility. There's all kinds of things like people don't know that if you have your assets in an insurance contract, life insurance contract, that it's protected from creditors and litigation. That is how O.J. Simpson was able to
Right.
sustain himself after losing the wrongful death lawsuit with his ex-wife and her boyfriend, right? Because he had his money in a variable universal life policy.
Wow.
So that's how he was able to sustain himself. And yeah, he's not a nice guy, right? But there's so many guys. There's so many. I got like 17 sparring partners, either won a world title or fought for a world title. There's 2 of them that I know that are able to hold on to their money. I had 2 of my sparring partners, millions of dollars, right?
Jeez.
And guess what happened? One of them was in LA, right? His wife called the cops as a domestic violence issue, right? This guy was like one of the baddest guys in the county sheriff's department, the jail, and he was scared out of his mind because he see people stepping out of line and get beat down. He's like, that ain't happening. But he lost everything. She got all of it. She got everything, right? And
Wow.
another one of my buddies, world champion, living in Las Vegas, started working construction, and got hit with an I-beam,
Wow.
and went to sleep and didn't wake up. Another guy right down the road here in the Hall of Fame, all right, got divorced, got locked up for domestic violence, right? Also got in with the wrong people in a charity, and they were doing things that were, sketchy, and
Mhm.
he went to prison for it too, right? Lost everything. This guy's, going to be a Hall of Famer, and he's, basically homeless, right? And so it's because, nobody was looking out for him,
Right.
and they weren't showing, hey, this is what so if you went through life doing that mission planning for yourself financially, like
Right.
we do in the seasons, right, you're going to reduce the amount of damage you're going to take, right? So that's the whole purpose of this podcast. I really appreciate you and Molliston coming on. I'll send you the videos. This StreamYard's going to break it up into little clips, and I'll send the whole video and the clips to you.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much for coming on. Yeah, maybe next time I get Dr. Francisco on, I'll invite you for that one too.
Sounds great.
All right. Have a
Talk to you
great day.
All right. Thanks. You too. Bye.